Hey, Chris.
Hey, Dan.
That's a hell of a sound.
I know. I love it.
I think we should be having an intervention, but instead we're going to talk about your Univox problem.
You can have an intervention. Just do not invite my wife or tell her about it.
Okay. She doesn't watch these anyways, so.
No, I don't think she
Okay,
does.
cool. We got a whole...
I'm joking. Sorry, that's like the worst form of humor.
We'll cut
It's
that out.
the very worst.
Yeah.
No, let's leave it in. I think...
That's up there with referring to guitars in the feminine for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
335 is my lady.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, enough of that nonsense.
Univox. They are really cool. And they're very under the radar. How did you get into these?
So when I first moved to Portland, met this guy, Mike Wilcox, who is kind of a legendary gear swapper in these parts. He's a good friend of mine, actually. Mm-hmm. But he turned me on to the U45B, which is that shape, the square one back there.
Yeah.
He's like, man, you got to check this out. You're an amp tech. You'll love this. And I plugged in. I was like, there's nothing about this amp that I don't like. But surely they can't all be like this. Because Univox, I always kind of thought as like a import thing that like usually not a whole lot of care was put into the circuits when it's like aimed at like a kind of a lower budget consumer. But man, everything I've played from Univox has been kind of mind-blowing. Like they kind of don't miss, or they didn't miss in the 60s, I should say.
Yeah, that's odd because it's the kind of thing that you would see collecting dust in the corner of some mom and pop music store.
Yep. Although every once in a while I get like a message from someone saying, have you played a U45B? Like there was this random one and I plugged in. It seems like it's incredible. Is it incredible? Like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, some real pro players are using them. I turned Mason Stoops. I think he was touring with one last year. Next to his Nathan Jr.
Yeah.
With Mumford and Sons. And Matt Hoops is texting me about it from 1981 and Reliant K. And people who know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. What do we know about the history of these things?
The history is very fuzzy. I kind of, knowing it was going to be on camera, I kind of did a little deep dive on ye olde internet. And from what I was able to find, and it wasn't easy to find because people do not really care about the history of these, is once upon a time, there was a company called Unicord, made amplifiers and fuzz pedals or whatever. And they bought the ACA, the Amplifier Corporation of America, in Westbury, New York. It's actually on Long Island, which is kind of funny. I don't know why it's funny. It's funny to imagine a guitar amp factory on Long Island for some reason. But they bought them, and I'm pretty sure the first generation of Univox amps was designed and manufactured in New York by Westbury, New York, by the ACA.
Interesting.
Who were then owned by Unicord, so I guess it was Unicord. And then at a certain point, they were bought by Gulf and Western, the oil company.
Okay.
And I think Gulf and Western, they're immediately like, well, we don't want to deal with these American unions or whatever. So they sent the manufacturing of just the electronics over to Japan and started getting the chassis made in Japan, shipped over, put in American cabinets with American speakers. Like they were using Jensen speakers, which are actually pretty high end back in the day.
Right.
I mean, that's what Fender used.
Yeah.
So that is the official history of Univox,
As
I guess.
much as we know.
Yeah. Yep. And I could be wrong about any and all of it. If you know more about Univox than us, please chime in the comments. Because,
genuinely, there was not a lot of very rich record keeping.
No.
And so if your uncle or grandfather designed some of these amps, it'd be amazing to know.
Or, aunt or grandmother.
100%.
Yeah, we would love to know. So anyways, that's the official info. What I can tell you from the circuit design thing is these things are badass.
That's cool.
They sound great. I thought it was a fluke when I first started kind of getting interested in them. It was like, surely they can't all sound good. Like someone actually cared.
Mm-hmm.
And then literally every Univox amp I've played from the 60s has sounded great. Every single one of them. And I have a lot of them here.
Yeah. It's the crazy thing about that to me is that so many budget brands from that era, the criteria seemed to be that it would turn on and make a noise. And beyond that, maybe whoever designed it had never actually even played a guitar at any level. So it's incredible to find off-brand stuff from that era that's really musical, is a musical instrument unto itself.
Yeah, like super weird.
Yeah.
But very pleasing. Makes me happy.
Yeah, totally. Tell us about the U45B. Okay,
so the U45B is, I think, the most ubiquitous 60s Univox. It's 112. It's got two ECL82 tubes, a 12AX7, and then a weird rectifier. 6X4, something like that. And the ECL82 tubes are interesting. They're a preamp tube and a power tube in one envelope. They used to put them in jukeboxes to cut down on the number of valves.
Interesting.
And they just used those tubes.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah. And then, so it's running push-pull cathodiene phase inverter like you'd find in a Tweed Deluxe. Really simple preamp, but well-tuned, well-voiced, and a really pleasingly saggy power supply, which was probably not as intentional, but maybe it was. And pushing a Jensen 12-inch speaker in about as small of a cab as you can get a Jensen 12-inch speaker. And the cabinet's made out of, it appears to be block pine with a floating baffle.
That's part of the resonance right there.
Yeah, it's a really good recipe for good tone. Sort of like a Tweed Deluxe, resonant pine.
Yep.
Cathodiene fit, like it just checks all the. Yeah, except these put out about maybe 9 watts on a good day.
Okay.
And I think the Tweed Deluxe might put out a little bit more.
Sure. Are we set up to hear the U45B a little bit, or?
We're set up to show you the U42, which is its single-ended little brother, made in the same cabinet. But it's single-ended, running a single 6AQ5.
Okay, let's check it out.
That's what this little miracle sounds like.
That's killer. I don't know, this won't necessarily come across on the mic, but in the room, I'm pretty far off axis from that thing. But it sounds great even from over here, and sounds very, it doesn't have a tight beam of sound. It's kind of like very diffused in a pleasant way.
Yeah. One thing they got right was the how much they open the back of the amp.
Oh, okay.
I've always been pleasantly surprised with Univox for that.
Just for anyone who doesn't know, what's the difference between single-ended and...
It's a whole big question.
Okay.
But basically single-ended means it's got one power tube, sometimes two, and it's basically not on either side of the output transformer. It's just on one side. And so it's kind of either letting current run through it or not, like one big valve.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas push-pull, one valve shuts off on the bottom, the other turns on at the top, and they're kind of out of sync, and that's how the current flows through the primary of the output transformer.
Interesting.
And there's all sorts of sonic things that go along with that.
Right.
Like single-ended are inherently asymmetrical. You can't really get them symmetrical, especially when they distort. And symmetry is a huge part of why sound or guitar sounds the way it does.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like putting asymmetrical diodes in your overdrive pedal.
Gotcha.
You get a little bit more. You just get a different sound.
Oh, that's cool. All right. So we've seen the U45B and the U42. What else is floating around back here?
So that's another U42, the single-ended deal. That is a U75, which is running, it's a 210. It's running two 6AQ5s as the power tubes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually really similar to these, the next one, which is the very earliest iteration of Univox, which is a Model 7.
The one called Orpheum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the thing about they were just slapping whatever name on it. They're like, well, Lafayette needs a product.
Yeah.
They were not very protective of their IP because that same company probably owned all of them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I got two Model 7s back here. So those are push-pull 6AQ5 amps. That Meteor?
Yeah.
Meteor. That is another iteration of the U45B and just a different size cabinet. Same exact chassis. They just stuck it in there. And then the one at the end is a U45B.
I think the kind of wild thing would be for the layperson kind of figuring out what's what, because it seems like they stuck different circuits in very similar cabinets. And
yep.
You know.
And the chassis weren't even really labeled what they were all the time, nor the cabinets.
I got to ask, the Square guys, did this have influence on the Nathan Jr.?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a fantastic size.
Yeah, I love that form factor. It just sits in your car seat.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. What else makes these things unique in their behavior, like how they sound and feel?
My favorite thing about them, and they all seem to do this, is they all appear to get darker as you overdrive them with a guitar. So they basically do the thing that people like fuzz faces to do. And not all guitar amps do that. A lot of Fenders don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Marshalls certainly don't do that. But it's kind of a magic trick. And I think it's because they have like a really, really badly filtered power supply for the most part. I should actually like do some sort of project and see why exactly that happens. But I'm kind of obsessed with amps that do that.
Right.
And they're pretty rare.
Yeah. Interesting. What about this guy?
So that's the U202R, and that's probably my favorite of the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that I turned you on to.
Yeah.
We saw one in Old Town Music. I was like, oh man, Univoxes are always awesome. We plugged it in. It was kind of broken.
Yeah.
But you bought it. We took it to my house and fixed it. And then I regretted telling you to buy it.
Yeah.
And not buying it myself.
There was a palpable air of regret.
Yep. I was like, dang it. And then I saw this one at Parrot Dice Guitars here in Portland like a month ago. And they didn't they didn't know what it was because it was unlabeled. There was like no information on it. It's like, that is a Univox U202R. They're like, do you want it? Yes.
Yeah. It's an amazing amp.
Yeah, I love it. So that one's got reverb, tremolo, and it's actually got most of these have the same style of preamp, which is just a few gain stages, a tone roll off, bias, tremolo. But that one actually has a tone stack that's more similar to like a Univox Super Fuzz, which is kind of funny because I'm pretty sure that might have been designed in the US. And then the Super Fuzz was designed by Honey in Japan.
Okay.
But they kind of use this weird filter that you don't really see very often for the tone stack. So it's just a really interesting amp.
Let's hear that thing. So interactive, like how the tone changes just based on what you're doing, and in really interesting, like non-linear ways.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. The speaker's a little bit tired. You probably heard that at the very beginning with the tremolo.
Yeah.
But I don't care. Sounds great.
It does sound great. And I think what's really cool about this is that, it can feel like vintage stuff is so unattainable now compared to what things cost 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Even for, a champ, a practice amp. But knowing that stuff like this, anomalies like this are floating around out there and are available is actually kind of encouraging to me.
Yeah. I mean, you could get one Tweed champ in rough shape, or you can have all of this and have 100 watts of Univox.
Absolutely.
With reverb and like 7 tremolos.
Unbelievable. I think that's probably something we should do in the future.
I did it last week. It was amazing. No way to really mic that here, but
right.
Trust me, it sounds good.
It's a real Neil Young kind of move, I think.
Neil Young would probably mic all of them and then run them through the terrible blue Univoxes in the back that were made in the 70s.
Right. Well, let's touch on that for just a second, because if anyone's watching out there and you don't know a ton about off-brand 60s guitar amps, basically one of these in working order is a good bet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, people are probably more familiar with the design aesthetic of like these giant blue things, which look amazing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Led Zeppelin used them for like a month. Until they discovered, like I did, that maybe they weren't great.
Yeah, so these are a completely different world than these things, right?
Yeah. So I think the blue ones were after the Gulf and Western maybe sold the company, and
they're petroleum powered.
Yeah. There's like a middle period between this cool 60s stuff and the lame 70s, late 70s stuff, maybe mid 70s, where they were just doing like solid state. So
yeah.
But yeah, if your Univox is brown, I was going to try to make it rhyme. But if your Univox is kind of brown grayish.
Yeah, if your Univox is brown, you can go to town.
You're in the Q zone.
Yeah. Awesome. I love mine.
Go to town
so much. Good. Yeah. Is there anything else we should know about these guys or hear that they do?
No, I mean, I've modded them over the years. None of these are modded just because I don't play gigs with them. But I used to gig with one for like a year, and I came up with some mods to make it a little more useful. Like I changed the frequency point where the treble rolls off, and then I fattened up the bass a little bit for certain things. But honestly, it's an 8-watt amp. It's squishy anyways. It's sort of untenable to gig with unless you have like 4 of them, because it just kind of doesn't really keep up with the drummer.
Right.
But recording amps, or if you're not playing with the drummer, could really make someone happy.
Yeah. There's also one thing that you didn't mention about, is it the 202? A surprising similarity between something that you designed and that.
Yeah. So turns out the Redland circuit, which I thought was pretty novel, once I started digging into it, is in the 202. They did it in a different way, and in my opinion, maybe a little worse. But you can actually move the mid-range band around up and down the frequency spectrum. And I was like, dang it. But, where's Univox now?
Right, exactly. Come after me, bro.
Well, actually, I think they probably exist, so maybe.
Yeah.
But they don't think they make amps. I don't know. Someone owns the name. I would like to own the name if someone knows who owns the name.
There you go. Yeah. Reissues would be amazing. That is cool. I mean, I just think that's an example of a cool idea, which certainly didn't find its way into a whole lot of other amps in history.
No.
Resurfacing. So
0 other amps,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Peavey did like a sort of version of it, but not really.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is my favorite Univox, which might be my favorite vintage amp. And then my favorite modern amp, which is the Redland at this point, also has a similar weird tone control.
Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah.
Should we play something to get out of here?
Sure. Yeah, let's get some nongs. Let's see here.